The League of Women Voters is a national nonpartisan organization formed to encourage citizen participation in government. It never supports or opposes any political party or candidate. The statements and opinions of the candidates are presented solely in the interest of public service and in no way are to be construed as an endorsement thereof by the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters takes no responsibility for any of the views or facts stated by the candidates.
To this virtual candidate forum for Oakland County Executive. Today is June 17th, 2020. This forum will be featuring the candidates who have filed for Oakland County Executive. The job of County Executive is to prepare an annual budget for approval by the Board of Commissioners and to keep them informed on the county financial conditions. The executive appoints and supervises heads of county departments and enforces county ordinances. The executive has veto power over the Board of Commissioners, but can be overridden with a 2/3 vote of the full board. The position consists of a 4-year term with a salary of $205,000 or $217,000. There are 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans running for this seat. Voters can vote for only one candidate. This forum is being recorded with the generous help of Jason Dale and the City of Rochester Hills Media Department and will be available on the League of Women Voters Oakland area website, LWVOA.org. Local cities and townships across the county will also be informed of its availability and may share it as well. The sponsor for this forum is the League of Women Voters Oakland area. I am Deborah Horner and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan political organization of women and men across the nation. Our members do the hands-on work of safeguarding democracy. While we never endorse a candidate or a political party, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues that keep democracy strong. As a League of Women Voters member, I have the opportunity to have direct impact on local, state, and even national issues. If you're interested in learning about how you can make a similar impact, I would encourage you to visit our website. Again, it's lwvoa.org. The League of Women Voters does not endorse any candidate or political party. Views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, and the sponsors take no responsibility. The format for this forum has been established by the League of Women Voters. We ask candidates to answer the questions with their views only and not interrupt another candidate. The candidates will be answering questions submitted online and generated by League of Women Voters members. The format is as follows. All candidates will be given 1 minute for opening statements in order determined by random drawing. Closing statements will also be 1 minute in reverse order. Candidates will have 1 or 2 minutes to answer each question in rotation as indicated by the moderator, me. All candidates will be allowed equal time to answer questions. Believe me, 1 minute goes fast. Candidates, please forgive me in advance if I have to cut you off for going over time. The candidates for Oakland County Executive in 2020 are Democrat, Dave Coulter, Democrat, Andy Meisner, Republican, Mike Kowal, and Republican, Jeffrey Nutt. We'll begin with 1 minute opening statements. First with Mr. Kowal.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it coming to the League of Women Voters and the people of Oakland County. I'm running for county executive because I just don't like the direction that the county has taken currently. I see needless spending in a time that we're going to have some very severe economic challenges. A little bit about myself. I'm a former state senator and floor leader for the Republican side. I was also in the state house, and I was supervisor of White Lake Township. I had the ability to go into White Lake Township and rescue them through some very, very bad economic times. And we did the same thing with the state of Michigan. We pulled them out of some very severe economic times that was left over from the Granholm administration. So I'm looking forward to working with Oakland County and making sure that the county is headed in the right direction, following a very good set of blueprints that Mr. Brooks Patterson left for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll have Mr. Andy Meisner.
Good afternoon, friends and neighbors. My name is Andy Meisner. I'm a lifelong Oakland County resident and product of our excellent public schools. I live in Huntington Woods with my wife, Sarah, and our two boys, Asher and Levi. Though I've worked in the private and nonprofit sectors, I've devoted the last number of years of my career to public service. And I want to thank the people of Oakland County for entrusting in me the position of state representative, where I went to Lansing and wrote the state's stem cell research law and also helped reform the criminal justice system. They've also entrusted me as their county treasurer for the last 10 years, where I've helped 30,000 families save their homes from foreclosure while protecting our AAA bond rating. I also had the chance to work in the federal government as a policy advisor on criminal justice and school safety. I have a detailed plan for our future. I have experience leading us out of the foreclosure crisis. My plan is laid out in detail at voteandymeisner.com, and I welcome the opportunity to have a conversation about our future, a future I believe in.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Coulter.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really happy to be here with the League of Women Voters, an organization that for over 100 years has been a leading voice in promoting citizen participation in our democracy. And I think that's more important than ever. So thank you to the League of Women Voters for doing this. As your county executive, my Oakland Together agenda has brought diversity and inclusion into all of our efforts. I've hired the most diverse leadership team in county history. I've made Oakland County a welcoming county, embracing our immigrant and refugee residents. I've acted to transform healthcare in our county clinics to offer primary care, family planning services, and behavioral and mental health care. And I've done all of these things, approved a 3-year balanced budget, and maintained our AAA bond rating that I learned about when I was on the commission. And when the COVID pandemic hit Oakland County, we acted quickly to keep our residents safe. And now we're focused on helping our small businesses and residents recover. So I look forward to discussing those accomplishments as your county executive. And thanks again for hosting this event.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nutt.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm a state bar champion of justice, owner of Jeffrey G. Nutt and Associates, married to an OBGYN doctor who has delivered more than 1,000 babies here in the Oakland County area. I'm a Fulbright scholar, so I know how to get things done. I know how to bring Oakland County back to where we have the 3rd highest per capita income in the nation. We're presently at 17. I served Chief Justice Warren Berger. I've overseen more than 20 accounting departments, multi-million-dollar programs, and I will continue to fight in Oakland County for every individual, every family, every worker, every business, every school, every community, for the best economic recovery, the best education, the best healthcare, and the best county operations without a new tax. I will recapture hundreds of millions of federal tax funds we pay for transit spent in other states. I will ease your pain with pro-family, pro-worker, pro-growth policies. Visit JEFFNUTT.com.
Great, thank you so much. We'll now begin the question and answer segment of our forum. I'll indicate how much time you have for each question. We're going to begin with Mr. Meisner. You'll have 1 minute to answer this question. So remember, that's not very much time. Okay. What do you see as the most important jobs the county executive has? And how do your skills and experiences qualify you to fill that role?
Well, the budget is really the value statement for the county and any organization that has the budget. And as the county executive, you have the opportunity to translate our progressive values into that budget document while maintaining the fiscal discipline that has been the hallmark of Oakland County over many years. As county treasurer for 10 years, I've worked closely on not only balancing the budget, but making the changes that are necessary when revenues don't come in as expected. Also, as a state representative and former federal employee, I have experience bringing federal state resources to bear to help us solve some of our biggest challenges. And so those are some of the important elements of being county executive and some of the unique qualifications that I offer, as well as a law degree, to be our best choice going forward.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Mr. Coulter, what do you see as the most important jobs the county executive has, and how do your skills and experiences qualify you for those roles?
Thanks, Deborah. I think you laid out in the beginning sort of the technical roles around the budget and the vetoes and all of that stuff, and that's all very important. But I think what people are looking for in a county executive is someone with leadership ability and experience. Having been the mayor of Ferndale for 9 years, I led that community out of the Great Recession and through a tremendously successful resurgence. And I believe that those are the kinds of values and strategies that we can employ in Oakland County and that I have been employing over the past year. Good leaders are collaborative. They work well with partners. They work well in the region, which is why I've made regional cooperation a hallmark of my administration. They also lead with diversity. And I've hired the first chief diversity, equity, and inclusion officer to make sure that everyone in Oakland County has a voice at this table. Because I believe, as I said before, my theme has been Oakland Together. When we are all at the table and everyone is valued, we make better decisions. And good leaders bring those people together and create actual results. And I think that's what people look for in a county executive.
Thank you. Mr. Nutt.
Yes, well, obviously, managing excellent county operations and budgeting with the 3-year budgeting process, the AAA bond rating that we need to retain, these go to the leadership credentials that are so important in continuing to manage the county with the excellence that is the legacy of L. Brooks Patterson, which unfortunately is no longer the case in the current leadership. I'm the only candidate who has experience in all 3 branches of the federal government, including on the state and international levels and in Oakland County. I've recognized more than 50 youth for having overcome significant adversity in life from every imaginable form of background and diverse economic and socioeconomic challenge that they've overcome. I've represented individuals and businesses in more than 30 nations. So because I've done that, I know how businesses can be helped here. And I've served more than 50 communities as the immediate past executive director of Neighborhood Legal Services, Michigan. I'm a Troy lawyer, a Trump supporter, an online dean that has also administered more than 130 courses in business, management, leadership, and IT. And I've, as I mentioned, served a number of people in a number of different areas. I've served youth.
So much, Mr. Nutt. We'll talk some more about qualifications, I promise. I just want to give everyone the same amount of time to answer questions.
Yes.
Thank you, though. Mr. Kowal, can you talk about what you think is the most important job the county executive has and how your skills and qualifications help you with those roles? Oh, Mr. Kowal, I'm afraid you have to unmute, please. Thank you.
Better? Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Without saying that the budget is the most paramount part of the job, but working with your legislative partners, and that being the county commission, and knowing what the needs are for each individual district, because like my colleagues have mentioned, Oakland County is a very large, very diverse county, and we need to make sure that each and every one of the county commission districts are attended to and not ignored. Working with the leaderships on both sides of the aisle to come to a conclusion as to how the money is spent, and also dealing with employees. We have hundreds of employees at Oakland County, and there's a lot of needs that have to be attended to there as well. So I'm looking forward to being able to go in there and show my skills, of which I've done before through supervisor in White Lake Township, in the state house, and in the leadership positions that I've taken in the state senate.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm glad many of you brought up the issue of budgeting, because our next question is about that. The next question is going to start with Mr. Coulter. On this one, I am going to give you 2 minutes because I know there's a lot to be said on this topic. Here's the question. The outbreak of COVID-19 is imposing great pressures on counties' budgets statewide. If, for example, the state cuts statutory revenue sharing, or summer property taxes go unpaid, or Act 51 road monies go down with decreased tax collections, what would you propose as ways Oakland County can find additional resources, revenues, or other policies that are going to help it meet its fiscal challenges?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question because we are seeing some of the other governments in Michigan struggle mightily. We don't have the same predicament, and I'll tell you why, but I do just want to say we maintained in February our AAA bond rating. We passed a 3-year balanced budget in Oakland County unanimously with Republican and Democratic support under my leadership. So I understand the importance of budgeting and how important it is to do it in a bipartisan way. And I'm really proud of that. And Wall Street agrees with us. The reason that our budget is significantly different than, say, a city of Detroit is because our revenue is primarily generated from property taxes. Unlike the Great Recession, where housing market collapsed and property values collapsed, economists at this point aren't seeing the same kind of effect. We are talking to them all the time. Because management and budget reports to the county executive, reports to me, I talk to our management and budget people every week about every line of that budget. But right now, the forecast is for less of a property value increase in this county. So probably somewhere between a $5 and a $10 million hit from those revenues. Obviously, revenue sharing from the state is a concern. There's other grants that could be at risk. And so we've tightened our belts. We have a hiring freeze on in Oakland County. We are eliminating positions that haven't been filled for a while. But I'm proud to say that because our budget is almost $1 billion, we can manage this with, by the way, a rainy day fund or a fund balance of over $200 million. We'll be able to manage this current situation. Now we're keeping our eye on the future. We're going to make sure. That's why we're tightening our belts, and we're coming up with all the savings that we can now to make sure that we're running a lean organization. But it's a lean organization that has the seal of approval of the bond rating agencies because they know we're still running a great budget in Oakland County.
Thank you so much. Mr. Nutt, I'm just going to repeat the question for you. What would you propose as ways Oakland County can find additional revenues, resources, or other policies if necessary to meet its fiscal challenges?
Well, this is one of the most important questions you can ask. One of the things that's unique about my plan is that we are going to bring in new small businesses and encourage them with incentives to start new job opportunities for our people that will increase revenues, to bring in increasingly increased numbers of dollars and increased numbers of people is critical. This region must grow with increasing numbers of people as well as increasing numbers of public and private funds coming into this county. We cannot rest on our laurels and just simply say, well, Brooks set up a great system. We have to go and build upon the successes of what he did and transcend them to make it better than ever. And in order to do that, I'm going to draw on my experience as a graduate of Leadership Detroit with the former Michigan governor, having overseen more than 7 chief executives, more than 100 professionals and consultants. I've chaired a program to engage more than 300 volunteer lawyers to help abuse victims and administered HUD programs helping to end homelessness, and spoken to more than 25,000 adults and youth. I'm the president of the Fulbright Association with a board that includes a resident who is an individual who is a regent of the University of Michigan, as well as a brigadier general in the National Guard, bringing all resources to bear, an Oakland University Fulbright scholar, as well as the Michigan State University School of Osteopathic Medicine, chair of the Department of Community and Family Medicine, is on the board that I lead. We are going to bring out all of the skills, the talents, interests, and the desires to bring the people together to solve this revenue issue on the long-term basis, even though in the short term, things are pretty stable with the 3-year budgeting that we have that allows us to sustain certain services in a very stable manner, in a well-organized delivery of county government.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nutt. Mr. Kowal.
Thank you. I've already started talking to manufacturers of pharmaceutical goods and medical equipment that are looking to come to the United States from overseas, because they see that the way the federal government is moving, that a lot of the companies that produce those type of things are going to be pretty much forced to come to the United States if they want to sell their goods here. Matter of fact, one of the pharmaceutical companies is planning and looking at the Rochester area to produce our own pharmaceutical goods right here in the county. Attracting businesses to the area is paramount. We need to go out and look at businesses that are not recession reactionary, so to speak. We want to make sure that we create a recession-resistant county. Brooks was on the right path. There's a little bit more work to do, and time changes, and the environment that we're in, the economic environment changes. So it's a constant upkeep and bring some more companies in. And Oakland County is a very attractive place to do business. We have been very good in the past about saving money. I'm a little nervous about what's going on now that we're spending down our fund equity. I think that needs to be maintained on a regular basis at a certain level and not spend it down. So with the combination of things, with my experience of running small businesses, working with units of government, I think we're moving in the right direction. I just want to make sure that I'm there to secure that.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Meisner, what would you propose as ways Oakland County can find additional revenues, resources, or other policies if necessary to meet its fiscal challenges?
Well, I think we are facing fiscal challenges, and I don't think that they should be understated. One of the things that we've been good at in Oakland County is understanding our exposure and liability. Back 10 years ago, people didn't see a $14 billion hit to our taxable value coming, but it came compliments of the recession and the foreclosure crisis. So I think we should be realistic about what we're looking at. And for starters, I think that real leadership is about sharing in the sacrifice. So when I heard that there were cuts and furloughs coming to the county, the first thing that I did was to myself to take a voluntary pay cut. I think it's important to lead by example. Next, because of the harm that mortgage foreclosures did in the last recession, we learned the lesson that we have to do everything we can to prevent foreclosures and the impact that they have on our property values and taxable values. That's why I was the first county treasurer in Michigan to suspend tax foreclosure for virtually every property in Oakland County, over a couple thousand of them, so that nobody would have to worry about losing their property during this tough time, and that we wouldn't have to be concerned about some of the ripple effects of folks losing their property going vacant, blight causing a decrease in property values that we dealt with coming out of the last recession. The next thing is that we have to find efficiencies in county government. And I think that the COVID situation presented us with some opportunities that we didn't think existed. Many of our folks, I was the first department to close down when the COVID crisis hit, to protect the public and to protect my fantastic team, one of the most diverse teams in county government, by the way. And we shut that down because we wanted to make sure that everyone was safe. And what we found is that we were able to continue the important work of the county treasurer's office in a remote way, which potentially offers cost savings that should be explored. In addition,
sorry, your time is up, Mr. Meisner. I'm so sorry.
That was 2 minutes, right?
It was 2 minutes. It was a little over 2 minutes. It's hard to stay short.
Let me just say, we need to grow small business, especially women and minority-owned small business as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, there's going to be more time to talk about all these things, I promise. Okay, this time let's begin with Mr. Nutt. You'll have 2 minutes on this one as well. I'm being very generous with our time because I think this is actually an important question to address. Mr. Nutt, what, if anything, do you think can and should be done to improve racial equity in our county and also statewide? And what efforts, if any, do you think you might make in addressing diversity within your leadership team once elected?
Well, I would point out that behind me is an American flag. And I like to say the red symbolizes the conservatives, the white, purity, peace, and prosperity, the blue, the liberals. Together, we in Oakland County represent the heart and the soul of America. I embrace the sports acronym. Together, each achieves more, TEAM. To understand the importance of diversity, we have to go way back. We have to understand our unique heritage in this country. And we need to think outside the box. We have to think differently. We have to feel with our heart differently. I facilitated the Maintaining Institutional Diversity panel of the 10th National Consortium on Racial and Ethnic Fairness in the Courts in Detroit, because I believe in diversity. I've led an organization in the past as the only Caucasian in more than its 50-year history. It's been a great honor. My family, in which I am married, comes from every major region with roots from every major region of the world. This is very important to me, that we are open and that we treat everyone with equity, with fairness. I would enhance that as county executive in a meaningful way, bringing everyone together with equity.
Thank you very much. That's excellent. I'm going to move on now to Mr. Kowal. Mr. Kowal, what, if anything, do you think can and should be done to improve racial equity in our county and also statewide? And what efforts would you make to address diversity within your leadership team once elected, if any?
Well, there's always room for improvement. And Oakland County, I think, is leading the nation in a lot of its racial issues. We have a large, diverse group of people here from every ethnic group imaginable, working with the sheriff's department, because they're the ones that are really on the ground. They're the people on the front lines dealing with all the different type of groups that we have here in the county. And I will say that our sheriff's department does an excellent job in diversity, both within their department and outside, dealing with all our residents here in Oakland County. Keeping in mind too that when people are working, we have a tendency to get along a little bit better, because they're not worried about putting food on their tables and clothing on their children. So, making sure that there's good, well-paying jobs out there for all of our residents is, in my mind, one of the most important things we can do. We have to make sure that the kids are fed in the schools, where they have the school lunches, not only during the time of instruction, but on the weekends and those sort of things. So it's going to be a constant, ongoing effort. I feel pretty good about what I've been seeing here through the demonstrations that have taken place. For the most, everything's been very peaceable, and people get along. And I'm noticing that people are talking to one another. If you continue to talk to each other, you're going to find it's a lot easier to get along with versus just turning your back and walking away. And that's, it's a social issue thing. It's something we're all going to have to work on.
Thank you very much. Mr. Meisner.
Well, thank you. I think the answer to the question is that we need leadership that strongly embraces diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I would build on my strong record as county treasurer, where I made the first female chief deputy treasurer in the history of the county, and over 10 years have built a diverse office that looks like Oakland County. We're about 13% African American, which is right about on par with where the county's at. We're at about 7.5% from our friends in the Hispanic and Latino population. We're about 2% Asian, about 2% Chaldean. And so I would want to build on the success that we've had in the Treasurer's Office and look at all of the many hirings and appointments that are available to the executive and make sure that those reflect Oakland County. It's critical. Next, we need a leader who's willing to unpack some of our racial history. We've had leadership at the county level that's been divisive on race issues. We need leadership that has the courage to take that on, to understand how it has affected us, our dialogue, the way we interact, and the way that it has held back some regional collaboration, including on regional transit. And lastly, I have a comprehensive agenda on my website, specifically addressing our friends in the African American community. And my plan lays out a comprehensive vision of addressing police reform, zero tolerance policy on racial discrimination by police or police brutality, as well as addressing the racial disparities that existed before COVID relative to healthcare, but that the COVID crisis shined a magnifying glass on. And lastly, expanding access to education. As a product of Oakland County's public schools, I believe that education is a great equalizer, and I want to open the doors to education and college and career education for every kid in Oakland County, no matter their zip code.
Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Coulter.
Yeah, thank you. I think I mentioned in my intro, but I'll say again, I appointed the most diverse leadership team in Oakland County history. The first African-American, the first 2 women. Brooks Patterson never had a deputy executive that wasn't a white male. That's just the facts. He wasn't a big champion of diversity. And so to hear Mike Powell say that the county is leading on issues of diversity, we've never led on issues of diversity until I got there. And now we're making it a priority in Oakland County to make sure that every voice in this county and every community in this county is respected and lifted up. And by the way, it didn't end with just my leadership team. My staff tells me that of all the hires that I've made since I've been county executive, 58% of them have been African American. I'm walking the walk, not just talking the talk. My opponent in the primary has been treasurer for 10 years, and he's never had a person of color on his senior leadership team, ever. I appreciate that he has a woman, and that's great, but you have to walk the walk. And you can't just talk about these things. You have to lead by example. And that's why I created a brand new position, which is Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. And we didn't do this after George Floyd. We worked on this right from the beginning of when I became county executive, because I want to make sure that every program that we run in Oakland County and everything that we do is reflected through the lens of, is it equitable? Is it fair? Does it treat everyone the same and level the playing field for everybody? Because Oakland County has not had that history. That's not the perception of many of the African-American people that live right here in the county who don't feel supported by their own county. I'm a leader that is telling those folks directly, you have a seat at my table and your voice will be heard, especially around issues, by the way, of criminal justice reform. That's what the marches have been about, criminal justice reform. And we need to reform our criminal justice system so that we stop killing innocent African Americans in this country.
Thank you. All right, our next question is for Mr. Kowal. We're going to have only 1 minute to answer this question. It's not a lot of time for this topic, I'm sorry. What do you see are the most pressing needs for infrastructure and capital projects across the county? Mr. Kowal.
Needless to say, our roads are not they're not in that good a shape. So we need, fortunately, we're going to have to go to the federal government to bring in some dollars on that, as well with the state. But with PA 51 and the way that the road funding is designed, that Oakland County gets the same amount of road dollars from Lansing as what Escanaba County gets. So I would think that there's a lot more traffic here in Oakland County than there is in Escanaba. we need to go to Lansing and make sure that that formula is recalculated so that we can bring those kind of dollars back to the county, Oakland County. Maybe start looking at miles traveled versus the way the gasoline tax is divided up. There's some federal dollars that are going to be made available here. I'm noticing that the president's talking about opening up the faucet on some federal monies for infrastructure. I want to make sure that Oakland County is in the forefront of receiving those dollars.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Mr. Meisner, what do you see as the most pressing needs for infrastructure capital projects in the county?
I think that we do have to expand investment in our roads and bridges. Those are areas of critical infrastructure that need help. However, I also think that investing in regional transit is a key investment that we have to make in infrastructure, because not only does it expand modes of transportation that are currently not available, but it's going to lessen wear and tear on the roads as more people choose to take regional transit. In fact, we need to expand access to all modes of transportation, more trails, more pedestrian walkways, more bike lanes, more access to buses and regional transit, so that we offer multiple modes of transportation. And that way, no one of the modalities gets beat up too bad, like our roads.
Great, thank you so much. Mr. Coulter.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have to put roads and bridges at the top of that list. Lansing needs to come up with the funds. The county alone doesn't have those kind of funds. It's interesting that we have two former legislators on here, but they weren't able to get that done. I'm frustrated by the way our legislature works, frankly. So that's obviously critical. But another critical need in our county, and I agree with my opponent, Andy Meisner, about transit. I've been a longtime transit supporter, and I think we need to get that done. But I'm worried about our water infrastructure. I'm worried about our lead service lines, which I guess Lansing said we're going to replace over 20 years, but I don't think we can wait and have our residents drinking water out of old lead service lines for the next 20 years. But it's going to be a huge investment. These things are not cheap, but it's time that Michigan and Oakland County invest in the things that will protect the health of our residents, protect the environment here. So that's why in my first budget, we put additional monies in that budget to make sure that every school in Oakland County has a safe drinking water station, so that at least we know when they go to school, they're not drinking water with lead. But we got to make sure that all those service lines get replaced, and that's going to help take Lansing.
Thank you. Mr. Nutt.
Yes, well, clearly roads and bridges are going to be the most important needs that we have that are in need of attention. And what I've proposed is to tap into a solution to our being, unfortunately, plagued with some of the worst roads in America. Year after year, the career politicians that are my opponents have not come up with a diversification plan for funding for transit that is sufficient to address this problem. Amazon hit us in our bid for the second world headquarters of Amazon because we had issues with transit. There is a need to diversify funding for transit. I've proposed a very simple reform to simply create a new entity to draw down hundreds of millions of dollars in U.S. tax transit funds that presently go to other states that we pay to the U.S. government, with no taxing power and no new elected officials attached to this entity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nutt. I'm sorry. Again, we're going to kind of keep our moving going forward. This next question is for Mr. Meisner. Start again, just 1 minute. I'm sorry. How would you evaluate the effectiveness and availability of Oakland County's mental health services? And what proposals, if any, would you support to improve them?
Yeah, well, mental health is a very important issue to me. When I was young, my dad got sick with bipolar disorder, which he dealt with his whole life until dying young at 58. And so as a state representative, I passed some solutions to that challenge, including getting persons with mental illness out of the criminal justice system. And that's where I would start with the county system, is strengthening our approach to dealing with the intersection between criminal justice and mental health. Second, I would look at the structure. Not every county has got a separate authority. That could create efficiencies, but it also could add another layer of bureaucracy that takes dollars away from actual treatment. And so what I would do is a national and international benchmarking of what's going on right now in mental health services in the county and make sure that we get up to speed with best practices. Because people who are dealing with mental illness, developmental disabilities, and emotional disorders deserve our assistance and the resources that are going to help them get through it.
Thank you so much. Mr. Coulter, how would you evaluate effectiveness and availability of Oakland County's mental health services, and what proposals, if any, would you support to improve them?
Yeah, this is a great question. You know, for the last 9 years, as I've been mayor of Ferndale before I became county executive, I also worked at the Children's Hospital of Michigan Foundation. Mental and behavioral health services was a huge focus of ours because it's a huge issue today. And we're seeing an increase in people with mental and behavioral health services. And that's why, especially in our young people, we're seeing a rise in suicides and substance use disorders and the like, opioid addictions. And these things are devastating in our communities. And so there's some very broad things that we can do. I think we have to better invest in our mental health supports network in Oakland County. I think we've defunded it too much over the years. But a very practical thing we can do is part of my healthcare plan, which is Oakland Health 360, which is we're going to bring mental and behavioral health services into our county health clinics. We have 2 clinics in Oakland County, one in Pontiac and one in Southfield. And my proposal would be to bring those services in there so that our most at-risk residents can access those services immediately.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nutt.
Yes, this is one of the most important underserved populations, those who are suffering from mental challenges. And what we need to do is we need to look outside the box. We need to make sure that we're not, for example, creating a system now in response to the pandemic that creates so much fear, using the language of fear, that people are avoiding entering care for their mental illness because of a COVID-19 issue. People need to get into their care. And right now we've seen an uptick by 8 times in the number of crisis calls since the COVID-19 epidemic and the pandemic. What we need to do is we need to have a continuum of care for the mentally and behaviorally impaired. And that continuum of care needs to transcend more than just the local mental health service providers. It needs to overlap into the care that's provided in other areas of the healthcare system, and even into law enforcement, as the president's executive order yesterday encourages us to do.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kowal.
Thank you. I've had the opportunity to work with the Veterans Administration and a lot of the hospital systems here in Oakland County and around the state of Michigan. And every one of the hospitals have expressed a desire to open up new mental health clinics and develop the ability to treat these situations as they arise. We're not doing a good enough job. I have been an advocate for creating a new mental health hospital system here in Oakland County, and the county would have to fund a portion of it as well as the state. But I agree with my 2 colleagues, Andy and David. The county is doing the best we can with what we have currently, but there has to be more done. It's gotten worse, especially as Mr. Nutt said, with the onset of COVID and people not going in and getting treated for these disorders, and then they end up in the Oakland County Jail, which doesn't do anybody any good at all. So we need to really get our heads together in a bipartisan fashion and figure out how we can stand out from the rest of the state and the country to correct this problem.
Thank you. And I really appreciate it because you've helped me segue right into my next question. This next question is for Mr. Nutt. You'll have just 1 minute, I'm afraid. How do you propose to work together with officials from different parties at the state and national levels, and particularly here among partisans in Oakland County, to create effective policies for Oakland County residents together? Mr. Nutt.
Yes, well, I would certainly draw upon my experience as having worked in branches of the federal government, as well as on the state and international levels, and here in Oakland County. I certainly would point to, as an example, how at the final session of the Open Justice Commission, the sitting governor of Michigan, as well as the Republican nominated Chief Justice of Michigan, asked me to speak on their behalf. They were from opposite parties, and I was honored to do so. We have to understand that when we come together, we have an understanding that we have to be open to hearing and listening to other perspectives, and through sincere concern and practical support, following up with, if necessary, a commission set up to work through this national divide, which is separating our communities and unfortunately ripping right through the union in many situations, that needs to come to an end, and it will when I am elected county executive here in Oakland County.
Thank you. Mr. Kowal, how do you propose to work together with officials from different parties at state and national levels, and particularly here in Oakland County, to create effective policy?
I have done that. As you know, I was in the state Senate, and I sat very close to our governor, who is our governor right now. We worked together on a multitude of issues. Rebecca Warren, who's from the Ann Arbor area, Rebecca and I collectively put together the autonomous vehicle legislation, which is opening the state up to all types of new businesses coming in and creating a new economy. I've had the opportunity to negotiate contracts with the Chinese in China. I worked with the Mexican government in the state of Oaxaca. I have dealt with the federal government on every level that I can think of. And one of my reputation is that, and I know Andy will agree with me, that I've gotten along with, and David, I see him nodding his head, Republicans and Democrats, and I'm proud of that I have the ability to sit down and cut through a lot of the nonsense that's out there and end up with a very viable product.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Mr. Meisner.
I think the key to working together is humility and understanding why the people have put us in those positions, which is for public service. And whatever letter we might have to have after our name, the most important thing is that we are there to serve and to deliver real results and solve real people problems. And I'm the only candidate in the race that has a record of doing that at the federal, state, and county level. Working in the United States House of Representatives across the aisle on policy and criminal justice. As a freshman state representative, I went across the aisle and worked with my Republican colleagues to change the law in Michigan to adopt drug treatment courts that divert people with drug addiction and mental illness out of prison and into the treatment that they need. And at the county for 10 years, I've worked closely with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle in a very collaborative fashion. And every year, we went and defended our AAA bond rating successfully. And that's just one example of a real result that I've delivered working together.
Thank you very much. Mr. Coulter.
Yeah. And I do agree with Mike. He has that reputation. I hope he would agree that I do. I try to be a bipartisan guy. I started out by saying that we got our budget passed this year unanimously. And by the way, our board is 11 to 10. And I think, in all fairness, if you were to look at the way I operate with the board, it's in a much more collaborative and bipartisan way than my predecessor did. I think that's just the truth. The trouble is there aren't enough Mike Cole Republicans are out there right now. We've got a guy in the White House who is the most divisive president I've ever seen in my lifetime. He's not bringing this country together. He's not trying to bring everybody to the table. He's mostly appealing to his base. And so we've had to go work around the president because he won't work with people that he doesn't agree with. And so that's been a problem. If you look at COVID, for instance, unlike him, we made decisive, science-based decisions early on. And that's what united people around our coronavirus response in Oakland County. And the reason we didn't see that in America is because the president didn't lead like that. We need more leaders that can act like that.
Thank you. All right, this is going to be our last group question before the closing statements. We did not make it to all of my questions, I will tell you, but I do want to finish with a question. This one, I'm going to begin with Mr. Kowal. Again, it's just 1 minute. So reports from 2019 noted that 33% of Oakland County's workforce, the county workforce, is eligible to retire. And the county government was planning increased salary positions for many positions in order to remain competitive in hiring. How will you balance the county's goals of recruiting and retaining excellent employees in county government with looming budgetary pressures that might be coming from COVID? And just briefly, if you can, explain what knowledge you have about overseeing such a large workforce as the county government has. Thank you. Mr. Cowell.
Michigan itself is an aging state. We're collectively a lot older than some of the western and eastern states. So it's a matter of job retention and attraction. We have one of the best kept secrets, in the United States, and that's our beautiful state of Michigan. And I like to think that Oakland County is the diamond in that in that part of it. But we need to get into the schools to talk to the kids before they're even in high school. Talk about what things are available here in Michigan to keep them here, be it the robotics programs, arts and sciences that are available right here in our state, and mostly right here in Oakland County. I've spent a lot of times with kids, and they think that they got to get up and move and leave the state when everything they really need is right here. We're finding it harder and harder to find employees in factories and in different skilled trades. In the skilled trades itself, those programs, they're dying for people right now. They just can't find enough. And this is where Oakland County and the Oakland schools need to work a little bit closer together in developing these programs that make sure that kids understand they can live here, work here, recreate here, and raise their own families here as well. And I think that's paramount for a healthy community.
Thank you very much. Mr. Meisner, how will you balance the county's goal of recruiting and retaining excellent employees for county government with budget issues? And what experience or knowledge do you have overseeing a large workforce?
Yeah, well, this has been an area that the county has failed for some time, as we've seen too many of our young people go to Chicago and Boston and Atlanta and all these other places. And I think the first thing that you have to do is to make cultural changes that are going to make the workspace more appealing for young people and next generation workers. One of those things that came through COVID is telecommuting. That's something that younger generation workers feel more comfortable with, as well as shared workspace. I believe making smart and targeted investments in our workers' futures, that we're willing to help them get an advanced degree or training. And maybe most importantly, this next generation is basically colorblind, and they demand an environment that embraces diversity and inclusion. And if you don't have that as a part of your culture, you're going to continue to miss out. My experience overseeing an organization like this, I point to 10 years, 11 years on July 1st as the Oakland County Treasurer, managing one of the most critical departments of Oakland County, making all the money flow, handling all the investments for the county. And that's why I think that I'm best qualified to serve as our next executive.
Thank you very much. Mr. Coulter.
Yeah, thank you. I think it starts with treating your employees fair. I'm very proud of the fact that we've navigated the incredible challenges of coronavirus without having to reduce anyone's pay, without having to lay anyone off. There's been a small amount of furloughs, but that's just because some folks at the courts, their jobs went away and we'll bring them back. So we protect and take care of our employees and we pay them a fair wage. And that's one of the ways we'll get them. But the other thing I would say is, Mike talked about we need to talk to our kids more. I actually think we need to listen to our kids more because they're trying to tell us the kinds of environment and county that they want to live in. They're moving to the kind of regions in this country that offer the things that they're looking for. We make huge investments in our young people in terms of education, and then they take that investment and they move to LA or New York or Chicago. We need transit. We need to create a welcoming and inclusive county that everyone feels a part of. We need to make sure that we're offering the training programs that they're looking for. We need to make sure that we're offering the work environments that they're looking for. So we have to do a lot more listening to the younger generation and the things that they expect, because they're very different than the things that some of us older folks wanted when we were growing.
Thank you. Mr. Nutt.
Yes. Well, this is a very important question. How do you retain the talent and how do you recruit the talent? How do you continue to stabilize the workforce to ensure that you deliver the best quality services? Well, I've proposed the creation of a new knowledge economy in our county that would enable us to once again become the economic engine that we know we're capable of becoming. With the knowledge economy, I've proposed that we seek to ensure that 75% of our residents earn college degrees and 25% enter the career tech track, earning their certificate training in the most needy areas where we can most utilize their skills. I've also proposed in a plan that I prepared on behalf of the American Academic Accreditation Commission, ways that we can control the waste of time, talent, and resources. That is to help schools and programs reduce the waste of student time, resources, and talent, to lower prices, to control costs, to enhance quality. We've heard mentioned the need for the best transit possible. These are things that young people consider. We have to stop the brain drain now.
Thank you, Mr. Nutt. That's great. I'm sorry, your time is up on that one. And also this does conclude the time for questions, but I would like the voters to hear from you one more time. Again, I'm hoping you can keep it to a concise 1 minute flat with your closing statement. I'll just give you a little wave if we get too far into it. We're going to go in reverse order of our opening statements. So Mr. Nutt, I'm going to ask you to start us off with our closing statements. Please go ahead.
Yes. Well, I would first like to say thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to be here. I'm a state bar champion of justice. Now is not the time for a career politician to be our next county executive. We need new leadership. Look around you at the conditions that we're facing at this moment. This is a dire situation with great opportunities. I'm the owner of a professional limited liability company that has served Oakland County for many years, as well as IT and education businesses in 30 nations, a Fulbright scholar. I know how to get things done, have supervised more than 100 staff, professionals, consultants, and many others, and have served in all three branches of the federal government, as well as the Supreme Court, where I was offered more than one job under more than one Chief Justice. I have been and will be a voice for the unheard youth, family, students, seniors, workers, businesses, schools, and communities. I have led more programs that we have time to discuss at this moment. I'm very grateful and honored. My wife has been an OBGYN in the area for many years, helping women and pregnant women. And I'm fighting for health and prosperity for everyone with pro-family, pro-growth, pro-worker policies. Visit JEFFNUTT.com.
Thank you very much. Mr. Coulter.
Yeah, again, thanks to the league for hosting this. As your county executive, I've implemented a progressive agenda and delivered results on diversity, on the county's first ever non-discrimination policy, on expanded healthcare, increasing the minimum wage for county workers to $15 an hour, and balancing the budget and preserving our county's AAA bond rating. Now, I'm leading our county through a health and economic crisis with strong health orders, strong support for our small businesses and our nonprofits, 5 dozen school nurses so that our schools can open safely this fall and take care of our kids, and widespread testing across our county, including and especially in communities of color. You know, we have challenging times ahead, preventing a second spike, supporting our unemployed, and recovering economically. And we must seize the responsibility enshrined in the Black Lives Matters to bring fundamental and lasting equity to our county. My record shows that I can bring people together and achieve results. These times call for a leader who can listen, work with people, and has executive experience to make decisions on a wide range of issues. I ask that you judge me on my record and vote for me this fall and next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Meisner.
Thank you. I'm a husband, father, servant, and leader. I was born and raised in Oakland County. I know our values, and I've fought for them as a state representative, congressional aide, county treasurer, and I want to keep fighting for them as your next Oakland County treasurer. Like gender equity, making sure that women get the same pay as men for the same work, racial equity, police reform, criminal justice reform, and making sure that we move forward to embrace equity. And I'm a balanced budget Democrat with a background of making sure that we pay for any program that we propose, and we have a vision for the future laid out at voteandymeisner.com. I want to expand access to healthcare, mental health, and cheaper prescription drugs across the entire county. Bring forward an Oakland County promise that will make sure that every kid gets a chance to go to community college, university, or career education, and sustainability. It hasn't come up, but we have a responsibility to fight climate change. And by 2030, I'll make sure that Oakland County government is entirely based on renewable energy while continuing to fight against gun violence. Oakland County, we have a choice. I would be honored to have your vote. Learn more about my platform. Share your ideas at voteandymeisner.com.
Thank you very much. And finally, Mr. Kowal.
Thank you once again to the League of Women Voters. It's really a privilege to be able to speak to all of you. I'm a husband of 46 years. We have 2 beautiful daughters that are powerful women and making their own way in the world. I have we have 2 beautiful grandchildren, Madeline and Colin. And fortunately, my grandchildren live very close to me, so I can see them all the time and see them thriving throughout, here in Oakland County with the school systems. We need to make sure that our kids have opportunity to stay here in Oakland County or raise their children and their grandchildren here in Oakland County, much the same as what's been done, that we've been able to do too. I see golden opportunities here in Oakland County. This is by far not the bottom of the barrel. We're going to be moving forward, and we're a shining star as far as development goes here in Michigan and the United States. I look at this as an opportunity to bring all of us together, Republicans and Democrats, to make Oakland County the place that people look to and hold up as an example of what they should be in the future. I'm going to quote my good friend David Coulter. He said, Mr. Beatty said, "We need more elected officials like Mike Kowal. You have a golden opportunity to do it here, to vote me in as council." Thank you, David. Kowal, FOROakland.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kowal. The League of Women Voters would like to thank the candidates for their participation and for sharing their positions with voters. For further nonpartisan information about these candidates, please check the League website at lwvoa.org or go online at vote411.org, where you can see an example of the ballot that you'll see in August and in November. Once this recording is available, links and rebroadcast times for the forum will be available on the website. And we'll also provide the link to local cities and townships for their websites if they'd like to host it. The League of Women Voters Oakland area is funded by contributions by concerned businesses and citizens. Our membership is open to women and men over the age of 16. Remember to vote on August 4th or to request an absentee ballot. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.